Should I do the Screamo intro that we talked about?
Yeah, go for it.
No! We're not going to talk about the Borg! Let's stop! No, I can't do that. Can't we just get Silverstein for this?
Nah, man, no budget.
Nope. Not talking about the Borg from Star Trek. GameMasters here, and today we are checking out the role-playing game Mork Borg.
A femur does D4 damage.
The term Mork Borg is Swedish and translates to dark fort or dark castle, and I've been wrestling with the best way to describe exactly what this role-playing game is. And really, instead of just reinventing the wheel here, I'll tell you exactly what the creators say it is. Mork Borg is a doom metal album of a game, a spiked flail to the face, light on rules, heavy on everything else. It is a pitch black apocalyptic fantasy RPG about lost souls and fools seeking redemption, forgiveness, or the last remaining riches in a bleak and dying world. You will confront power-draining necromancers, skulking skeletal warriors, and backstabbing wickheads. You will wander the valley of the unfortunate undead, the catacombs beneath the Bergen Crypt, or the bedeviled Sarkash Forest. Leave hope behind. The world's cruel fate is sealed, and all your vain heroic efforts are destined to end in death and dismay. Or are they? Now hint, your character in this game is going to die. A lot.
It's really not suited for those under 16 years of age.
Mork Borg is part of the OSR genre, the old school revival genre. In other words, it draws heavy playstyle and inspiration from the early days of tabletop role-playing games. Think Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, but less rules. And consider the first part of Mork Borg's description, with it being light on rules. Think of it like this. Instead of rolling an investigation check for traps as the game master, I'd instead encourage the player to describe themselves checking. Tell the story. Be a part of the story. Rolling dice are still there, but that's only when determining a random chance's outcome. This game would rather see the common sense of playing play out what you're doing as opposed to making a roll for every attempted action. Okay, I want to talk to the innkeeper and see if I can get a better deal on the room. Roll a persuasion check. Oh, I got a 5. Nope, he's pretty firm in his price. Instead, in Mork Borg, this would likely be the scenario. I want to talk to the innkeeper, see if I can get a better deal on the room. Now, why should I grant you a discounted passage? Okay, because I have information on the skeletal horde that has been plaguing your town, and I am hell-bent on bringing them down. I'll need all the extra gold I can to buy supplies in order to eradicate them. And you providing to me a discount on lodging means I will have a few more coins with which to purchase those supplies. Yeah, indeed. And with that skeletal horde gone, that will in turn bring business back to my inn. Consider your night's stay on me. No rules, no dice rolls, just pure role-playing. Now that's not to say that this game doesn't have rules. It does. They're just very brief in nature and for the most part are, well, kind of optional. If you really like having a difficulty class, like an ability check or saving throw, you can certainly call for them to happen. If you want to roll for initiative in combat, do it.
The table of contents is called the index, and it's at the back of the book. Lists where all of the rules can be found within the book itself.
Should you choose to roll, DCs are referred to as tests, ranging in so simple people laugh at you for failing to this shouldn't even be possible. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Mork Borg, the book itself, is a bit confusing. The few rules that do exist are sprinkled throughout the book, with a lot of story intertwined in large, bold, and ripped fonts. So much so that there were times when I was reading it, I didn't really know what parts were considered rules or what part was just story. And to add to the confusion, some elements are embedded within the artwork.
Some of the artwork has foil in it.
And I think that's kind of the point. I mentioned earlier that this is a black metal album of a game. It's meant to go back and forth with the book chock full of bizarre imagery. That if anyone were to find it in your room, they might just question if you're okay.
This is a really messed up picture.
Some of the imagery is a bit on the disturbing side, as is some of the descriptive elements. As mentioned, the images and fonts can get a bit messy at times, so the creators put out a free bare bones edition. And I grabbed a copy of that, but I also have the real deal, the hardback book. And I'm just going to avoid showing the more questionable images here.
A Warhammer does D6 damage.
More on the rules themselves. You have 4 abilities: strength, agility, presence, and toughness. Strength is used in a similar fashion that would use it in Dungeons and Dragons. Agility would be similar to dexterity. Presence is kind of a combination of wisdom and intelligence, and toughness is closely related to constitution. They don't work in exactly the same way that their D&D counterparts work. I'm just trying to kind of tether them to something that we all recognize.
To plunder a corpse, you roll a D6-6.
When you create your character, you will choose random equipment, random weapons, and random armor. Then you will determine your ability scores, the strength, agility, presence, and toughness that we just talked about. And if you're choosing to play as one of the optional classes, you'll roll a 3d6 and plug those scores in for your strength, agility, etc. However, if you're not wanting to play as an optional class, you're going to roll a 4d6 for 2 of those abilities and drop the lowest die. Then you'll fill in your modifiers according to the abilities table. Next, you'll roll your hit points, which is determined by rolling a d8 and adding that number to your toughness. When your hit points drop to 0, you'll reference the broken table to see what happens. Don't worry, you'll find your character being killed.
On the broken chart, if you roll a 4, you're dead.
If you wish, you can give your character a name, but as the book states, it's not going to make any difference. It's not going to save you.
On plundering corpses, if you roll a 23, you'll find a bag of angry venomous moths, and you might die.
The optional classes each have traits that will affect your overall stats, and also flavor that helps to kind of set the mood, the disposition of your character. They are Fanged Deserter. Basically, you use your teeth to bite with. Think low intelligence barbarian here, but your axe is your teeth. Gutter-born Scum. This one's a bit dark, and I'll let you check out the flavor of this build, but you basically get bonuses to agility and presence. The closest character in D&D would be a rogue. The Esoteric Hermit is kind of an Obi-Wan Kenobi type in his hermit form. An old guy from, the original Star Wars movies. And but you're of course not going to have access to the Force. Think kind of defunct mage here. Wretched Royalty. You were royalty once. You don't start with any adjusted abilities. However, you do get to start with an additional weapon and armor. And that's got to count for something.
A flail to the face is going to do D8 damage.
The heretical priest will have a slight advantage against undead. Maybe, or they might not. Mork Borg is literally hell-bent on seeing that the characters die over and over and over. The occult Herbmaster love shrooms and other herbs. They're tough, but they're not very strong. I'd consider these to be kind of distantly related to a potions brewer, mixing things together to help allies or hinder enemies. Some of the classes have abilities to cast magic. Mork Borg refers to these as powers. Powers are usually found written in scrolls. But not all classes can make use of scrolls. Heck, some can't even read and would just as soon opt to use the scroll as toilet paper. If you are among the gifted that can use a scroll, you'll roll a d4 and add that to your presence bonus every morning. And that is how many times you can use that particular power that day.
This long sword, that's going to do D10 damage.
When you enter into combat, you will roll initiative, just like in Dungeons & Dragons. However, it's really down to a 50-50 chance as to if you go first or if the monster goes first. On a roll of 1, 2, or 3, the enemy goes first. On a roll of a 4, 5, or 6, the PCs go first. The Game Master can also allow individual players to roll for initiative, or it could just be a big batch roll. You'll add your agility score to the d6 roll to determine your actual initiative. There's a table here that references crit and fumble. Rolling a natural 20, you've made a critical hit. Rolling a natural 1 is a fumble. And these work in a very similar fashion to how it works in Dungeons & Dragons.
If you're enjoying this video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and helps me to share it with more eyes, and I really appreciate that. I thank you kindly.
When you encounter a monster, the Game Master will roll a 2d6 to determine if it just flat out wants to kill you, if it's indifferent to you, or if it wants to help you. But honestly, in the end, it doesn't really matter. Your character is going to die. Have I mentioned that yet?
Their version of a troll has 32 hit points.
If you encounter a group of monsters, the key to this game is survival, and morale can go a long way in keeping you alive. Most enemies have no desire to die. As such, there is a morale table, and it will be rolled upon if the leader of those enemies is killed, or if half of the group is killed, or if any given individual enemy only has 1/3 of its hit points left. 2d6 is rolled. On a 1, 2, or 3, the enemy flees. On a 4, 5, or 6, they're just going to up and surrender. Provided you have survived the battle, you can rest and potentially restore lost hit points. And while there is no experience table, the Game Master will decide if you should advance and gain more hit points or find one of your abilities raised. Enemies in Mork Borg are out for themselves. As mentioned, no one wants to die, but almost everyone will. Many of the monsters and creatures encountered are going to be challenging. There are goblins, zombies, wraiths, blood-drenched skeletons, trolls, necromancers. Hell, there's even undead dolls. The list kind of goes on and on. Not every creature wants to kill you. Some have recognized that you may very well be the key to their own survival, and these are called outcasts. And you'll never know if they want to stick around or if they're going to just turn tail and run if the going gets tough. They can provide to you benefits such as excellent meals that will in turn heal you, or they might be an expert with a knife that can provide a little extra damage in combat. Or, as stated, they might just run away when you need them the most.
The book has an embedded bookmark.
There are dungeons for the plundering, ruins ripe for the picking, villages to be discovered, and crypts to be avoided. And every square inch of Mork Borg has the potential to kill your character. I know, have I mentioned that yet? You're likely going to die. One of the more interesting things that I've seen in this book is the calendar of Nechrubel. The world trembles. One by one, inevitable events demand their place. Each day at dawn, the Game Master will roll a die. The die is used to determine by the GM and the group, but on a roll of 1, a misery is activated. I've mentioned a few times that your characters will die, that their names will not matter, that all things will eventually end. This is why. You are playing in an apocalyptic world. It is slowly counting down to its inevitable end where darkness will consume darkness. There are technically 37 miseries that can be triggered. Mork Borg refers to them as psalms. On a roll of a 1, on whatever die you have chosen, the Game Master then rolls a d6/6. That's 2 6-sided dice, a percentile sort of, and references the listed psalm for that result. Then that misery happens. The same misery will not befall the world twice. In that instance, you would just re-roll. If, however, you roll a 7/7, the world ends. The 7th seal is broken for the 7th and final time. Fire burns all, and darkness shall swallow darkness. You are then instructed to burn the book. Just do it outdoors in a non-combustible location if you're going to be that hardcore about it. Mork Borg is a hardcore, intense role-playing game, and what's especially cool about it is that Free League Publishing, the company behind it, that published it, has a license that allows anyone to make stuff for the game. And get this, you are free to publish it or free to sell it without them taking any of the cut. They have a small list of rules that you can adhere to, well, that you have to adhere to, but how awesome is that? You can actually create content for this game and make money doing it.
The book's cover looks wicked cool in a black light.
Mork Borg was created by Pelle Nilsson and John Noor. It was published by Free League Publishing and was originally released in Swedish. However, Patrick Stewart, not that Patrick Stewart, translated it into English, and some say the English version is cursed. They also provide for free character sheets, a random dungeon generator, random monster generator, several free adventures, and loads more of cool stuff on their website. I'll list where you can get all of that stuff down in the description. What do you guys think of Mork Borg? It's kind of right up my alley, really. I've always loved the style of role-playing game that encourages role-playing, imagination, and storytelling, and Mork Borg seems to provide that. Yeah, it's got some dark elements.
The spine of the book glows.
But here's the kicker. There is absolutely nothing at all to stop you from incorporating the elements in this game into any other tabletop role-playing game that you are playing. From Dungeons & Dragons to Pathfinder to shucks, even Vampire the Masquerade or Star Wars. Star Wars might be a stretch, but anything that finds itself in an apocalyptic setting would fit very well with the mechanics found within this book. Chat with me about your thoughts of Mork Borg down in the comments, and until next our paths cross, may your game not roll a 1 7 times and unlock that 7th misery.